Okie dokie, artichoke. This is a short video, but I do think it's an important one. If you're doing some one-wheel building or motor changing and things like that, there are a couple important points to note. This is a Superflux Mark III high speed. As you can see here, it is the quieter version. That's why they label it as SH for sh. So this is the Superflux Mark III sh. MTE, MTE. These are both N48s for XR motors. This was a plus motor. This is an XR motor. They all have something in common because they're all made to fit the XR frame, which includes XR WTF rails that have the same mounting points. Now, there are 4 screws, commonly called bolts, even though they're actually screws. There are 4 screws that mount either side of the motor through to the frame. These that you see here on the mounting block are commonly referred to as the inner hub bolts. These take this mounting block or a carrier block or an axle carrier block and adapt the actual axle of the motor to the rail. Same is the case here on the Superflux. There's one on either side. This is probably all familiar to you. There are 2 bolts on either side that mount this axle carrier block to the axle. These are M8, and depending on if it's an XR motor, the actual driver, this is a 6mm, and so I'm using this here. It's a 6mm hex. These are 5mm on the standard hypercore for the XR and the Plus, and that's how those mount. The GT and Pint are different. There are 2 total bolts on either side that go through the axle carrier blocks and the rail. So it's just two screws, rail axle block into the axle. But these are more common for VESC, and so this is what I have in front of me. And number 1, you get a Superflux out of the box. The inner hub bolts are not Loctited, they're not thread locked, they're not even really torqued down. I took one out, this one has not been touched out of the box. That is all it takes. So if you're taking a Superflux, any version, out of the box and just installing it into a board, it's not a great idea. You're not gonna have a good time. You're gonna get a little while into your riding and then you're gonna have this knocking back and forth as these vibrate loose. Now, these axle blocks have been redesigned, wonderful, so they hold a little bit tighter, but you do have to take these out and thread lock them. What I use is, this is Loctite's Clean In Prime. It helps clean threads, but it also acts as a primer, which decreases the cure time of anaerobic thread locker. This is what I use most commonly, 243. It's a modified 242. It's a blue medium strength. The 243 is a little bit more oil tolerant, so if the threads are a bit dirty, have a little bit of like cutting oil on them from when they cut this stuff at the factory, this will tend to cure a bit better than standard 242, but it's blue medium strength. If you prefer Permatex or whatever, blue medium strength is going to be what you want to use in this case. And these bolts, screws, I took this one out. It's pretty clean. There's not a lot of dirt and grime on it. Down there into the axle hole looks pretty clean. And so I'm just going to spray this, let it dry, and then apply that and torque it down. With the Superflux, there's a little bit more rotational play. Do be careful of that, because sometimes you could secure down these axle carrier blocks, then you get to assembling the board and the holes don't line up, and you have to loosen these and sort of change their orientation. So that's something you have to be mindful of. Same thing here. If this is a motor that you just took off and these have already been secured and you haven't had loosening, probably you don't have to do anything. But if you just took all this off and put the MTE hub on in these cases, clean it all out, take a cotton swab with some acetone, and then reapply your thread locker. Give that a bit to cure before you start installing it and go riding around. These threads, both the axle carrier blocks to the rail and the blocks to the axle, see the most stress on the boards. And so if you don't set them up properly from the beginning, you're gonna have a bad time. Loose threads and a lot of knocking puts a lot of stress on the aluminum, and it will ultimately deform. And so you can actually completely destroy the axle of a motor if you don't do this stuff properly from the start. So that's something to consider. Hope that helps.